As a child, he was, I don't know, he was just carefree and easygoing and a loving child, but I was married to a man that I found out after years and years and years was abusing Steffen. He would make him like watch his brothers, you know, and if the brothers cried, that he would get in a lot of trouble. And I want to say he was 7 or 8 years old, and we lived actually across the street from my sister, and he got brave one day and just decided to run to my sister's house. That started a whole bunch of stuff with the police. My ex-husband got arrested and spent like 18 months in prisons. He was severely abused, and the stuff that he later on in life told me happened just would make your stomach crawl. You know, he would pick him up in the air and just throw him on the ground, and then he would like throw him in the bathtub so he wouldn't get bruises, like I guess putting him in hot water so he wouldn't get bruises and stuff. So over the years he told me he was over it and he was over it and it was over it, but every time he would get upset, you know, that he would bring that up, and I don't think that was something that he ever really dealt with. And then on top of that, you know, Steffen would get in trouble in school. I finally got him diagnosed, he was bipolar. They put him on medication, and the medication made him feel like a zombie, as he used to say. So he was one of those ones that he figured out what made him feel better, other than that medication from the doctors. They smoked a lot of pot, they drank a lot. All of his friends would come to my house, and I would bust them all. But he was always kind of, with his bipolar, he was like happy 1 second, and then you could, I mean, look at him wrong, and the world was gonna end, you know. So we went to counseling for probably 3 years, 3 or 4 times a week. Somebody that I grew up with got into some trouble, and I let him come live with me while he was on parole. I figured that he would like teach Steffen and his friends, this is not the way that you want to go in life, you know. That person that I let live in my house is the one that got Steffen and his friends hooked on the harder drugs. This guy was using them to get money from me and from Nate's parents to go take them to go get drugs. He was a tattoo artist. Steffen always wanted a tattoo, and I told him, you can have a tattoo when you're 18. It gives you the time to really think about what you want. And I was walking down the hallway once, and I just happened to notice over the top of his sock just this little tiny line. And I'm like, what is that? He's like, what, Mom? What is that on your, nothing, nothing, nothing. And he, you know, tried to walk away, and I pulled the sock down and I saw the tattoo. Well, I discovered this guy was tattooing minors in my house while I was working. So all of Steffen's friends have a tattoo from this guy. Steffen and I had a very close relationship. We talked almost every day. And believe me, this child told me way more than I needed to know. Way more than I needed to know. But on some things I know that he was hiding from me. Steffen fell down a flight of stairs. In his first apartment, it was icy, and he fell all the way down. And he ended up hurting his back. So he went to a doctor, and the doctor put him on, you know, pain meds. And after 2 years, I mean, I don't know the whole story, but after 2 years, the doctor told him you can't have pain meds anymore. I know eventually it turned into heroin, and I know that he didn't want to be hooked on heroin because he actually went himself and got himself put on methadone, and he would have to go every day, you know, and get that methadone, and they did drug tests, so I knew he wasn't using then. He even wanted to come to my house and detox because he wanted to get on Suboxone. Well, he ended up detoxing at home with his wife by himself. Then he ended up meeting Jackie. I think they met when they were 17. And Jackie, from the moment, the moment she turned 18, she moved in with us. Because her mom is a pill addict, and to this day she is. So Jackie had to kind of raise her brother and everything, and she didn't want to be in that situation anymore. So she moved in with us. I mean, literally the day she was 18. And they've been together ever since. And, you know, Steffen's 31 and Jackie's 31. So I think they had 8 years together before they even had children. So, you know, they did their partying, but Jackie was not an addict by any stretch of the imagination. Would she dabble here or there with Steffen? Yeah, and they'd drink here and there, but she was not at all an addict. We as a family, I mean, addiction runs rampant in my family and both sides of my family, so I've lived with it my whole life, you know. And that's probably one of the biggest reasons why I've never done anything, because of the addiction in my family. But they have 3 kids. The junior is 5, Mindy is 3, and Khaleesi is 1. Those kids absolutely adore him. So he'd been struggling with this heroin thing for about 5 years, and I knew about it, but I didn't know the extent. Yeah, he was really, you know, the methadone, and then he went to the Suboxone, and he had to take drug tests with the Suboxone, so I know he wasn't using at that point. He couldn't have been, or the doctor wouldn't have been giving him the Suboxone, because this guy he had to bring him back the strip, the packages and everything to show that he was using it. He just wanted to not be on the Suboxone anymore either. I think he tried to make a clean break from it all. But his back pain was so severe. I mean, you could sit there. I mean, there's times he would just have to crawl across the floor. And you could sit and you could see his back. He'd sit on the couch and he'd just spasm, you know what I mean? And I just kept telling, why can't we get something done with his back? What is going on with his back? These people wanted to do physical therapy before they wanted to try anything else. And I'm like, why would you do physical therapy not knowing what is wrong with his back, Could you possibly do more damage? This is when the stuff started to really spiral out of control. Something had happened to the baby, to the 1-year-old. She had put something in her mouth, and Steffen had come home from work, and Jackie was like, Steffen, what is wrong with her? And he's like, oh my God, I think she got a hold of something. They had to take her to the emergency room, and they ended up having to use Narcan on her. At some point, Steffen had dropped something on the floor, and the baby found it. So I actually had to go and live with them, and Steffen wasn't allowed around him. So Jackie and the kids came and stayed with us for a couple weeks. So at this point, he had been in a detox. We had sent him to a detox center, so because he wasn't allowed to be around the kids. So we put him in a detox center in Rockford, which is just a town right over from where he lives. I think he was there for 3 days, but his bipolar or whatever got so out of control. I think he was going schizophrenic. I mean, it was very strange. So I'm thinking he was going through withdrawal. But instead of him getting any help, they sent him to the mental institution or the mental ward. And then when they let him go from there, he didn't go back to detox or rehab, so he got no help from there, So it ended up where Jackie was cleared, so she was allowed to be with the kids by herself. And then it took a few weeks for them to close the case and Steffen to be cleared. And it just downward spiraled from there. I guess she called me once and said that, because what happened was she worked during the day and he worked second shift, so they didn't have to have babysitters. And so he was supposed to pick Junior up from school, and she got a phone call from the school saying that Junior was never picked up. And so on her way from work, she had to go and pick Junior up, and she walked in the house and Steffen was just passed out on the floor. So, and the baby was there. This is when we kind of knew that his heroin addiction was out of control. I think after that, Jackie just finally had enough, and she came and stayed with me with the kids. And we left him all alone for his birthday because I tried to do the tough love, you know what I mean? So this is when we knew we had to get him somewhere out of Illinois. So we found a place. Jackie actually found a number, and she called this number, and there was a place in Indiana that was going to take him. So we just left him, for the weekend to do whatever he was going to do. And of course, during that time, he would, was texting us, I can't believe you're leaving me for my birthday. What if I OD? You guys will never know. The manipulative, whatever. And Jackie had called and said, that this was happening. So Dakota, his youngest brother, went over there and had to put Steffen, they got into it. We got Jackie out of there. The police we called the police. They ended up taking him to the hospital because what we needed was he needed to be sober in order to say, yes, I'll go. And so they took him to the hospital. Well, and of course, about 5 hours later, I see this video. He has a video of him walking down Rockford, and of course he's being, you people that made me walk from Rockford, and I'm like, they didn't keep him. I just needed him to be sober enough so I could get him into this place. And we found this place in Indiana that was gonna come and get him, and then when they found out about his bipolar, we sent him to a Better Today. We had called them again, the police on Monday. He went over there to make sure we needed to get him sober so he could get on the phone and say, yes, I will go. They took him to the hospital. Now on Monday, all of a sudden, there's nothing the police can do. What they did instead was they told Steve that if we go in the house and there's only personal use, he won't be arrested. They arrested him anyways. He told the police that he would work with them. He would have to ask me, Mom, what happened? There's days and days that he doesn't remember. Because he told them that he would work with them, they let him go. And then he was supposed to call them on Tuesday and give them some names. Well, my middle child, Dalton, decided that wasn't happening. he decided, because he was on his way to work, and he said, he goes, Mom, I started thinking about it, and he goes, and I'm not going to let my brother become an informant. And that just puts your family in danger. You know what I mean? So he went and he picked his brother up. They went out to a park, and he sat there with him all day until he sobered up, until A Better Today called him, and Steffen said, yes, I'm ready. They brought him to my house. He used what he had left, of course. The last videos I have of my son, and some of the pictures I have of my son, are my son nodding out. But what he ended up doing was, he would sit and he would nod out, and he would nod out, and finally he just fell asleep on the kitchen floor, and I left him there for, 7 hours. And I knew his back was going to pay for it. I knew it. But, we had all the kids and everything at the house, so I kind of blocked off the kitchen, made the kids stay away from the kitchen. When it was time to go, my middle son said, let's go. And he got him on the airplane. And when he first got to A Better Today, all he wanted to do was go home. And see, we live in Illinois, so I sent him one way. No phone, no money. So I told him, I don't care what you want, you're staying. You are staying until I feel that you're good and that they tell me that you're good. So of course he fought me every step of the way. I hate this place, and because he had to do the detox and everything first, so you go through that. But I think for the first week he wasn't even allowed to call me. He got a privilege, like I think it was once every couple weeks he could call me. After 60 days he still wanted to go home, but I think it was about 65, 66 days he's like, you know what, Mom, you're right, I need to stay here. His wife had, and I don't blame her, but she had told him she wanted a separation. Absolutely understand, you gotta prove yourself. I just know that I was on the phone and I heard somebody in the background tell him, nope, you're not getting anything. And he's like, Mom, I need money. I need you to send me like Western Union. And I'm like, no, I'm not sending you money. He's like, fine, I'm leaving. I'm like, well, do what you gotta do, And he's like, well, if anything happens, I'm like, you can threaten me all you want to, but I know you well enough that you're not as big and bad as you think you are. So I guess he ended up going away for a night, but he said that this homeless guy really kind of helped him. And he said he found a cat that he just kind of drank the beer with the cat, and ended up calling, A Better Today the next day, and they came back and got him. So you could be talking, he wanted to talk over you, And he was actually taking the time to, if I was talking, he started talking, to be like, sorry, Mom. I could tell that he was really putting in the effort not to talk over me. And he was actually taking responsibility for some things in life that he would have never, ever taken responsibility for. You know what I mean? Never. I remember telling him, wow, he really is taking responsibility and ownership. And I was kind of floored, because I had never seen this in my son before, ever, in his entire life. If Steffen was lying and you caught him in a lie, he would lash out. That's how I knew Steffen was lying. If I thought he was lying to me and he really wasn't, it would just be a cool, calm conversation. But when he would start lashing out, I knew he was lying to me. He always had to put on this really, really tough exterior. And people, people were afraid of him, A, because of the way he looked with the long hair and the tattoos and the piercings, and just because he could snap. But if you really knew Steffen, he had a heart of gold, and he really did care about other people. He was just hurt so much in life that he had these walls. He wanted to help that and he told me about helping that homeless guy. He's like, I really think I got him to come into treatment, Mom, and he was so excited. The first thing he said when he got off the plane and he got into our car, I wish I would have never left A Better Today. And he goes, those people were my family. And he said, I made so many genuine friends, people, because, they didn't know him from his whole life. The little bit of time that he was at my house, he regretted it wholeheartedly, because that's all he talked about was coming back to A Better Today and the friends that he had made. Before he left, he had somebody that he owed money to. And so his family wasn't in danger. I took him out to Rockford to pay this guy. And I said to Steffen, can the guy pull up right next to us? And he goes, Mom, that's not how it works. And I'm like, in my naive mind, I'm like, why not? Just pull up here and hand him the money and we'll go. The guy said, meet me over here. So there was literally a restaurant here and a Wendy's here. I literally let him out of the car. He went here, I went into Wendy's, and by the time I got the kids out of the car and into Wendy's, he was back. You know, it's done and over, he's paid for, we're good, whatever. And we sat and we ate Wendy's with the kids, and he was sweating a lot. And I said, Steph, why are you sweating so bad? But I just figured it was just, running around with the kids and everything. You know, he ran hot. He's got really thick hair, but that was pretty much it. And so I didn't want my grandkids in danger, you know what I mean? He wasn't even home 24 hours, and Jackie dropped off all 3 kids. So I didn't even really have time, and I have my 2 granddaughters from Dakota that lives with us that I watched during the day. Jackie had dropped off the 3 kids, so they were also there. And he was playing Call of Duty with Junior. That's what they did. They loved it. Never thought anything of it. I never heard, because his room was right next to mine. I never heard anything during the night or nothing. And I woke up, and the kids were still sleeping, so my normal routine is I get up, I feed the dogs, and I go to work. All of a sudden, Mindy walks out, and she's like, Nana, I have to go potty. I'm like, okay, go potty. And then Junior walks out, and he's like, and so Junior came out, and I looked, and I could see Steffen in there laying on the bed, so I just thought he was sleeping. And he's like, Nana, I gotta go potty. I'm like, okay, bud, go potty. And then he went potty, and he got his coloring book and crayons and went about his day. And then about, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes later, the baby starts crying. And I listened to her cry for about 5 minutes. And then I'm like, okay, this is enough. You know what I mean? Dude, get up. And so I walked in, and I'm like, Steph, the baby's crying. And nothing, so I smacked his foot. And usually he'll be like, Ma, whatever. And nothing, and something in my head just made me stop, because I couldn't see his face at the time, but I just stopped and I watched him, and he wasn't breathing. So I walked around to the side of the bed, and I saw his face, and I knew at that moment that he was gone. But then I remembered that I had the kids there, so I had to like rein myself in for a minute and put them in my room, turned on the TV, watched a show, and turned it up really loud, and then Dakota went in there and tried to, revive him. But it was too late, he was already gone. So then we called, 911, and we had the ambulance and the police were there, and then they told us, don't touch him, because now it's an active crime scene, and of course, they have to rule us out and everything, and they did like a swab test that was just enough to barely give him a reading on their swab. They took his phone, they took his wallet and everything, and they brought his wallet back. They're like, well, I don't need it, there's nothing in here. So they found nothing. At that point, I thought, well, maybe because Jackie had brought a bunch of his stuff over. So I thought, well, maybe, and I'm not blaming Jackie in any way, but I thought, well, maybe he just had some stuff in his things and she just didn't go through, and find it all. But since then, of course, we've had the funeral, and in the city that we live in, or the county that we live in, they really take this stuff seriously. So when I told them, me taking Steffen to go pay off that guy, he was really interested in it, so I had to tell him like exactly where I was and all that kind of stuff, and they took Steffen's phone, and they got all the deleted text messages, and were able to ping Steffen's phone with this guy's phone, got the guy's messages, and then they were able to go on the surveillance cameras and see Steffen getting into this guy's car. So they actually have arrested this guy, and he's being charged with drug-induced homicide in Steffen's death. So what they ended up doing was, they've had this guy since January 7th, and they stopped him on like a drug stop, and he ended up running, and he ran into 2 police cars and tried to get away and everything, so they got him on like felony fleeing and eluding, damage to government property. The detective in this case was pushing for the coroner to get the test done, so he didn't bond out on that and then run. So he had to know the exact cause of death in order to know what to charge the guy with. So yeah, it was a heroin overdose. But he said to me, he's like, the really weird thing is there was no fentanyl in it. He goes, and normally there's fentanyl. And he said, and in Steffen's case, it was just a therapeutic level. It wasn't like he had taken a whole bunch. It was like if you were, on pain meds, that therapeutic level in your body. He goes, that's all that it was. He goes, but he thinks that maybe him mixing that with his medication that he was supposed to be taking for his bipolar and his anxiety, and maybe even sleeping meds. I don't downplay Steffen's part in it at all. My son was an addict, point blank. But, you know, I do feel better that there's another drug dealer off the street. And I just want to say to this guy, what if it was your brother, your son, your father? Do you think about these kind of things? He hadn't reached out to you in over 90 days. Where the hell do you think he was? I just want to know what you would feel like if it was your family that somebody did it to. Do you give your family your drugs? I'm not a vindictive person, and you know, and I even said to the detective, you know, I feel kind of bad for this guy because at one point he was an innocent child, and if he was raised in this stuff, that's all he knows. But at some point you become an adult and you have to know right from wrong. Even in his most addicted days, he still thought about his kids, you know what I mean? We had Junior at our house a couple weeks ago, and he's 5, he doesn't understand the finality. And he carried around a picture of Steffen all weekend. He kept asking me, is my papa coming back? Is my papa coming to my birthday? Fell asleep hugging the picture. I don't know what to tell a 5-year-old, you know? It's just heartbreaking. So, you know, when he met that guy, I'll never know, honestly. Maybe I will once the trial and stuff goes on. I don't know what he got from this guy. I don't know if he got something from this guy and found stuff in the stuff that he had. You know what I mean? I should have. You know, my son was home 3 days and he was doing such an amazing job. And that one thing that he didn't work on, I loved him unconditionally through it all. And no matter what crappy stuff he did, like I said, I was his mom and I loved him. You have to really take your recovery serious and work on what you really, really need to work on when you're in recovery. When you relapse or you do something, there's somebody out there that's going to be devastated.
Detox to Rehab wants to help as many people as possible and do it the right way. Please subscribe, comment, and like our channel. Thank you for watching.